So Mark, Nnamdi, welcome to Area Presents and thank you for coming in today. Can you tell us a little bit about who MegaNexus are and what it is you do?
Well, MegaNexus are a technology company and we built software that's delivered to 120 prisons in England and Wales to provide rehabilitation services, primarily with education and employability.
Okay, and how do you do that?
Well, MegaNexus provides some software called the Virtual Campus. The Virtual Campus is in 120 prisons. And it actually provides an opportunity for offenders to interact with OLAS providers, i.e. organisations like the Open University, City and Guilds and so forth, who provide learning to offenders in prison, which gives them an opportunity to enhance their lives and actually get a job when they're released from prison.
So Nnamdi, can you talk a bit about the scope of the issue of reoffending in the UK and some of your personal experiences as well?
Yeah, sure. The scale of reoffending is actually on quite a vast number. It's actually costing the government 15 billion, and that's just for the reoffending. So you can imagine just how much of the public purse is going into trying to tackle this problem. I have seen this for myself. Those who I've encountered with, they want to change, but I guess sometimes the support network is not in place for them. And that ultimately has an effect on when they are released to sometimes go back to their default of what they know, and then that can kind of materialise into committing an offence, and that kind of perpetuates the whole circle. So it is on a massive scale. 6 out of 10 reoffend if you spend less than a year in prison. So if you spend, even if you've got a 2-year sentence and you manage to spend less than that, you are still under that. Just like myself, I got given a 2-year sentence, 2.5-year sentence, and I spent 9 months. So technically, I am actually still under that kind of window. But I got a job. And with good old Mark, with MegaNexus.
And you're helping solve the problem.
Yeah, I'm helping. I'm ultimately helping to solve the problem, because as much as I am an account executive, I think more importantly, my role is to give MegaNexus the insight into how to make it much better. It's a brilliant tool right now. The idea is fantastic. The fact that you can learn at your own pace and access to resources, and sometimes, like I said earlier, that if you are a slow learner or you're a fast learner, doesn't matter, because you can do it at your own time. So that is brilliant. But again, there's certain things that can kind of be barriers or that can kind of stop it. But the insight that I've given has ultimately making it a lot better. How is it from a prison's point of view?
Yeah.
You know, because again, people can sit at the top and say this, that, but how is it for someone who's actually gone through it? How is it for them to use it? How is it utilised better for them?
Yeah.
So that's effectively the main role of why I've been taken on board on MegaNexus.
So we understand that the cost for reoffending, if you like, is 15 billion a year for the taxpayers, and actually people that are being in prison for less than a year are 60% more likely to go back in again. What are you guys doing to kind of help minimise that?
We're in 120 prisons, as I mentioned, in England and Wales, already delivering our software to those that actually have access to it. But that's not the massive cohort. There are only 85,000 people in prison. Actually, there are 260,000 in probation. And so we can provide a soup to nuts, if you like, an end-to-end, a whole system approach to rehabilitation, where people actually who are educated in prison to get a job, to get skills, then go, it's called through the gate into probation, and can continue that learning on their journey to breaking that reoffending cycle. So actually giving people not only skills that relate to jobs and employability, but also to ensure that some of the other pathways to reduce reoffending, which is a really, really good government initiative actually, are included in our solution, such as drugs and alcohol rehabilitation, accommodation support, access to finance and bank account. There are 1 million people in the country without a bank account. A lot of those are the cohorts that are actually in the justice system, and actually provide physical support to people to give them all of the nudge behaviour that they can actually take to break that reoffending cycle. We can't actually physically do it ourselves. We can provide the digital platform both in custody and also through the gate in probation to achieve that. But it has to be the individual themselves that wants to do it for all the digital inclusion that there is in the country.
And Nnamdi, what's it like using that in practice?
It's actually, I like it. I'm going to keep it very simple. I actually like it. The main reason why I do like it is because of the continuity. Because when you're in prison, you can embark and engage in so many different courses. There's several to go through, and sometimes you can lose track, especially during a prisoner's journey. You can be transferred to somewhere else, or when you finally are released. But when you are released, you can go on a smartphone or a tablet or a computer and just log back into your account and continue your journey there and see what you've done. And you can show your probation work or even show your family, look what I've done during my time, look at what I've learned. CVs, you know, so just for the fact that you can continue, doesn't stop at the gate. Yeah. That's what's fantastic, because sometimes a lot of people do feel left alone. Like when they're left at the gate, that's when sometimes they feel like they're getting more support in prison as opposed to out.
Yeah.
But when you have the fact that you can continue your journey, it's brilliant. That's fantastic.
It's a good point that Nnamdi makes, actually, because the resources being available, we have a CV builder, for example, where you don't sit and write a CV like maybe we would. You actually can click a button that says, what are your characteristics? And it will build your personal statement for you. The average intelligence age in prison is pretty low, as a general rule of thumb. So actually providing the right level of support to help people present themselves more professionally, if you will, is one of the key functions that we provide, as well as access to all the jobs that we job scrape from .gov or gov.uk, actually, sorry, gov.uk, so that they can apply, whether in prison or in probation, for roles based on the skills and capabilities and badges that they've earned whilst they've been either in prison or, as I say, in probation.
So tell me more about what the next step is in terms of your product.
The next step is absolutely moving towards an InCell product. We are building a proposition to put actually tablets in cell. Okay, because of the complexity of getting an individual from prison, from a cell in a prison, to the education wing, that takes a lot of time, a lot of overhead. So there's a massive efficiency saving, enabling somebody who's in cell to actually use a tablet. But there are security issues around that, which we think we have a solution for, working with some partners. But not necessarily not necessarily one size fits all. The benefits of rehabilitation in cell are massive. People can do their learning, people can do their DVLA, driving theory.
And how much time does a prisoner spend in a cell, you were saying earlier?
Well, it's up to 23 hours a day. It depends on the place that you're at, and it depends on the pressures and strains on an organisation that's already under a great deal of pressure and strain. But the legal minimum is 23. Is that right?
Maximum.
Legal maximum. I'm sorry. Yes, is 23 hours a day. So there's a lot of time with nothing to do. And so that's where the future is. There are very few countries, there are very few territories that actually do offer an InCell type capability. There are one or two leaders, but not that many.
Yeah.
And the UK really does need and want, or England, Wales really needs and wants to get into that space. But as ever, security is a problem. You know, there's a lot of television going on around. There's programs on television about trouble in prisons, and it's very real.
I guess, Nnamdi, is it frustrating spending time in your cell and actually wanting to kind of get out there and actually maximise the opportunity you have?
100%, because there's certain things that's not within my remit that I can control or even try and get out there. I can't get out unless I've been taking it. So I want to learn. I want to get a job. I want to utilise my time. I want to gain from this experience. But unfortunately, there's not enough staff. I'm not sure if it's down to staff, but sometimes it's just that I just can't leave my cell. And when you're in a cell for 23 hours a day, it does get frustrating, more frustrating, and you can understand how it's like a general consensus with the prison that they're just not enough to do, unfortunately. So yeah, and that was my position.
I think also with the the trouble of the age, the sort of the mental age or the learning age of somebody in prison as a sort of a generalisation, which is 11 as a educated age. We have to deliver content in the way that it can be consumed as well.
Yeah.
So the content is very much based on gamification. It has to really empathise with what the individual wants to do. And that's not just about doing maths and English, that's about doing practical skills as well. Whether it's bricklaying, whether it's catering, whether, working in the catering industry in those sort of blue collar sectors, cleaning, FM services and so forth. And we've got a lot of content that relates to that. So actually the practical side of it can be done in cell. As opposed to that massive transfer being supported by 3 prison officers, great expense. If we can get that delivered and we can get the security alignment to that right, then actually opens up a whole new way of working within prison.
Yeah, understood. So Mark, who are MegaNexus partnering with from a technology perspective?
Well, MegaNexus is a company is quite a small, we're an SME, we're very specialist in what we do, working in a very niche market. We think there are 2 fundamental opportunities. One's at what I'd call the front end, actually, working with organisations that operate and have a large footprint of people and engagements, both nationally and globally, who have an interest in the justice sector, as well as organisations who can help us at the back end with things like blockchain, big data, and the analytics that will enhance our product and therefore their reputation and capabilities to understand exactly what's happening through the dynamic analytics of what goes on to improve our product and therefore increase the utilisation.
Okay.
The 7 pathways to reduce reoffending, where we're actually enhancing content, we're continually adding content to the solution, but we're actually completely rebuilding the product so that it's a lot more dynamic and affects how an offender goes through the pipe from sentence to release. So induction, when you go into prison, when you're inducted into prison, there'll be a video. There'll be a video of what the prison's like. There'll be a video about what you have to do. Because at the minute you're just given a piece of paper that's been photocopied 500 times. And then you've got to go into actually your process of going through the justice system itself through your education and employability. And then you need to be prepared for exit. And this is what our new product is all about. So, if somebody's been in prison for 10 years, they know what a smartphone is. How do you exist without a smartphone? How do you do a tax return without digital?
Yeah.
So actually key to this is digital inclusion. And then actually preparing to go through the gate and actually being given £46.50 in cash and a travel warrant, or £4.50 if you live in London. Why would you do that? Why would you not give vouchers, or why would you not give an Oyster card if you live in London or something like that? And then actually be taken through the gate and engaged in probation in different ways. That there are laws about this that we have to work to, but ultimately, if those can evolve to embrace digital, then actually we probably, we're part of the way down the road to being able to support the fulfilment of that.
So I think we've covered a lot around the benefits to the prisoner and the benefits to rehabilitation, both in the prison and beyond, through the gate, as it were. But what about the benefits to the government and the staff that are actually interacting with these prisoners?
It's a really important point. What we're doing is driving efficiency and optimising the resources so that they absolutely can look at a case, an individual, a citizen going through the system at any given time.
It's really interesting. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
You've got your service user, which is your offender, you've got your case manager and then your national manager. And the software works based on the offender virtually going through a pipe to rehabilitate.
Okay.
But then those interventions need to take place where a key worker enables something to happen, or a case manager in probation needs to make something happen. And then you need to report on it and understand it. So our new product is being built very much with those personas in mind, as an individual with resources made for their specific unique needs goes through that pipe to rehabilitate, whether that be in custody or whether that be in the community.
Yeah.
Great. That's so good to hear what you're doing.